Hello, everybody. My name is Ernie, and this is my presentation for my final assignment. It is titled Engagement of the End User in the Design Process. So while most of the work done in architecture involves creating a product that's going to fulfill the demand and expectation of a client, the role of an architect is far more than just creating that end product. In fact, architects wear many different hats throughout the different phases of projects, and their contribution to societies go beyond just creating this final product. They have to deal with different areas of life, such as caring for the environment, fostering communities in their projects, ensuring the safety of their occupants, increasing comfort for their occupants, lowering costs, inspiring society, restoring neighborhoods, beautifying spaces, giving people a voice, improving quality of life, and finding clever solutions to challenging issues in architecture. All of these, amongst others, are the ways in which architecture helps society by improving the way people live, work, play, and interact with each other. And they all serve an important purpose that goes beyond just creating that product. So there are two models of architecture. The traditional model being the model where the architect directly leads with the key stakeholders, the developer, upper management, people that oversee a project, but not necessarily form part of the main body of the end user. So this obviously has its advantages, as these people are very biased and they're driven by cost, making sure that cost is low, making sure that all deadlines and milestones are met throughout the project, but they also leave out valuable feedback that only the end user can provide. So in architect's quest for engagement, this is when we start to see the end user be more involved in the product, in the project itself. And this can lead to many positive benefits, such as improving the quality of the space, providing spaces that are more efficient that help the end user do their job better or help the end user learn better if we're in a classroom environment, or maybe even help the end user heal better if we're in a hospital environment. So some of the success stories of projects where the end user has been involved throughout the project include the works of Anna Heringer, which is the med school in Bangladesh. And this is a project that involved the end user throughout some of the design process as well as the construction. So here in this image, we see members of the community, including children and some elders, being part of the construction process. This not only led to a better project overall, but also gave people that fulfillment and that sense of pride, knowing that they were very much involved in the process. Another success story is the super dome structured by architect Neighbor Khalili. So this is a collection of many projects throughout the world where this architect who worked in corporate decided that this was not fulfilling his life purpose, and he started to experiment with different prototypes using these rice bags and filling them with the earth beneath his feet to create these very interesting dome structures that people are able to build. He gave people the opportunity to build affordable home that can be built in community, can foster community, but also gives owners, again, that sense of ownership and pride because they were part of the design and the building process. There are also challenges that come with this modality. In my opinion, Earthship Homes by architect Michael Reynolds are an example where too much of this control can be given to the end user to the point where it could harm the product and eventually the end user. In these type of communities built by this architect, they used a lot of scrap material, a lot of trash materials such as tires and bottles, glass bottles. The problem I see with this is that this can lead to using potentially toxic materials. If this is not supervised by a professional architect that has a clear vision and knows what to use and what not to use, this could really go in the wrong direction and it could lead to toxic homes where people could suffer from health issues in the long term, or even structural problems that could be a problem. Some of the case studies from my personal experience, I worked at three different architecture firms as an intern. The first firm involved the production of community floor plans for a master builder that does communities outside of main cities here in DFW. They mostly develop in suburbs that are away from the city, which kind of leads to people having to commute to and from the city, spending a lot of their free time on the road. And also a lot of these homes, they're very much of your cookie cutter home, don't really give the end user the opportunity to provide their feedback. They're just kind of like off the shelf models that people buy, but don't necessarily have to say as to what goes in them and what doesn't. In my opinion, this is an example of projects where the project just does not end up being the best fit for the end user because they are mass produced, not really keeping the end user in mind as far as their personal choices and what works best for them. The second option, the second case study is the work that I did for the second firm that I worked for, and this was in the fast food chain restaurant area. So again, we have these mass-produced models that are pretty much the same all over. You kind of have the same model that you're working with, and you're adapting to different sites. But as far as the floor plans, the layouts, it's pretty much the same model over and over again. I feel like this is a problem because the end user in one city could be very different from the end user in a different location or a different region. Um, Minor modifications might be made to a project in order to site adapt it, but it's still not involving the end user throughout the process. And it leads with prototypes that are very general and not specific to the area where they're going to be built. My last case study is for the last firm that I've worked for. This is more of a design firm, does a lot of transportation work and maintenance facilities, and I was able to see how they really involve the end user. I was able to sit in meetings where the end user was asked about the layouts, and they were able to give their opinions, and they were able to point out specific items that really could make a difference in the project. I also got a chance to do site visits to projects that are completed, and got a chance to speak to some of the managers and some of the employees. And it's interesting how a very small change, like moving a fuel tank to another location, could really expedite their workflow. It could really make things easier for them. So this is the importance of involving the end user. So for as far as the analysis, of all these projects that I kind of spoke about, I think the biggest thing is just making sure that the end user has a voice in a project, making sure that they are considered, making sure that developers, upper management, are not the only ones that are dictating the design. And it's important that these end users give their feedback, but also to a point. I think it's the architect's responsibility to be the judge and know what is something that can be feasible and what is something that it can't. Obviously, budget will always be a problem, and there's always going to be things that developers might not see a lot of value in, given that they're so concerned with budget. But I think this is where an architect's job is really about seeing the bigger picture, seeing what's best for the project, what's best for the end user, and at the same time, the developer, and just kind of compromising and doing their due diligence and their research to know what is something that could be done and what is something that can't. Keep in mind that the safety of the occupants is above everything. So for my conclusion, I think that the engagement of the end user is of great importance and can really benefit the overall success of the project. But of course, it is the architect's job to make sure that any feedback that is given by the end user is something that is feasible and something that's going to help the project and something that's not going to be a concern of safety. So with that, thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoy this presentation.